edition of the Aggregate mock draft. And I've been doing my mock drafts for a while now. I actually work for Hoops Hype now. So my coworker Michael Scotto put this together using all the 10 biggest mock boards to create an aggregate of where people could land. I provided some scouting reports for this, so go check out the scouting reports. And we're going to run through this rather quickly because I feel like it has not changed too much. So let's get right into today's video. Hit that like and subscribe button if you want to support. But peace, let's get to it. The fact that he's kind of like this Jaren Jackson Jr. potential as a guy who could really be, he moves very well. He could be a shot blocking, floor spacing big. The potential is there. That's kind of like players of his size and athleticism don't grow on trees, and that's why you got to take him. Next up, Zachary Rissache is kind of like this guy who's in between a Cam Johnson, Michael Porter Jr. molds, where he's a really good floor spacer. He's got a high release point at 6'10". He's not going to be a number one or a number two option on a playoff team. He's probably going to be a third option. And he's not an elite defender, but he's a solid team defender. It's just nothing super flashy about the guy. Can put the ball on the deck a little bit, but he's not going to blow you away. I think he's going to be a consistent pro. Mateus Buzelis is a person that people really like, especially because of the Franz Wagner, Hito Turkoglu comparisons with the shot blocking, similar to Zachary Rissache. People really like the 6'10" shot blocking, rebounding, and he having Buzelis having a bit of ball handling. The question with him is the 3-point shooting and how good he's actually. Now, Rob Dillingham's a guy who's been flying up boards. He was a big-time recruit before he went to OTE, then went to Kentucky. And he's a guy who's a 6'1", 6'2" combo guard who's in a point guard's body. For me, I think his floor is being a microwave in more of a guard body of Malik Monk. And obviously, his ceiling, I think, is being a 6'1", borderline all-star, dynamo off the bench, or not always starting. So I think he could really be a good player. Nikola Jovic, in my opinion, is the second best player in this draft. You don't find players with his shot creation and passing ability as well as his willingness to play defense easily. And if you needed a true guard and you had the defense, I would really consider taking him. He comes from a basketball family. His free throw shooting numbers are good, so even though the three-point shot isn't great, I think he has a place in the NBA. Donovan Kling is a guy I like. People say he can shoot threes, but I've always said he's just a more mobile, bigger, longer version of Jakob Poeltl, which is a very good center in today's NBA. I'm just not going to sit here and be absolutely mind-blown by a guy that, isn't anything too crazy. Next up, Reed Shepherd. I've said he reminds me of Kirk Heinrich. I think he's going to be a guy who's an offensive weapon who averages 12 to 15 points either as a starter or off the bench and can, dish the ball a little bit, but is a better defender than people expect, to the point that he could be an all-defensive team. I think how he tests athletically at the combine will dictate that. Stephen Castle's a guy I really like. People have said they've been looking at him as kind of like this Marcus Smart kind of guy, and I think that's a good comparison. He's not a true playmaker, a true facilitator, but he can, run an offense, and he'll probably get better with age. And the three-point shot's the swing skill, but the defense is there. Ron Holland, I remember seeing a comparison to Gerald Wallace, and I think that's a thing. His draft stock went down because he was forced to be a number one option when he's not. And he's just a hustle, rebounding, defensive, athletic freak who's got good size in the NBA, and I think there's a place for him here. Cody Williams has slid down just because I think he's probably closer to Patrick Williams than he is to his brother J-Dub, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just think he's efficient, but he sometimes turns into background noise too often to disregard. Dalton Connect's a guy that I think is like Tim Hardaway Jr. He has the size to be an okay defender if he wants to turn it on, but he's an offensive microwave with a good frame. He's a little thicker than Tim, but I think he's going to be one of those guys people are going to see as a plug-and-play guy. I see Jacoby Walter as kind of a smaller, maybe more of a guard version of Al Burks, where he comes in, can play defense. Not saying he is a good defense, but when he tries, he can play defense. and he's going to be a three-point shooting, kind of bucket-getting swingman. Isaiah Collier is just a guy I don't really have a full read on. I feel like he's supposed to look like Jaden Ivey in terms of offensive, like downhill, but he doesn't have the speed or the deceptiveness. He's kind of a bull. I've compared him to like a Raymond Felton. I don't know if anyone here. It's just like he's got a lot to clean up. He's 6'5", 210's great, but what does he bring to the table? I don't know. Tajon Saloon's a guy who's flying up the boards, in my opinion. He went from a second-round pick to now maybe being a lottery pick. He's just an athletic freak. He has a similar frame to Rui Hachimura. He can jump out the gym, and he loves to play defense. What can I say less? Kyle Filipowski, people are saying, is kind of like a Kelly Olynyk, Naz Reid mix, and I think there's a place for him. I've been saying OKC needs to draft him to put him next to Chet Holmgren. Jared McCain, I've heard comparisons to Seth Curry. He's a really good three-point shooting guy who I think is going to have a good NBA career, maybe a little bit of facilitation, but not much defense. Devin Carter's the son of Anthony Carter. He's a grit grinder. I think he's the type of guy who maybe could follow the footsteps of a Terry Rozier, goes to contending teams, is a high-level backup, then gets the opportunity to start and becomes really good. He's Messi. People are calling the Clint Capella of this draft class. He might be raw right now, but in a year or two, he could be one of the best rebounding shot-blocking bigs in the league. Tristan DeSilva is a guy I personally think he's a small forward, power forward in college, but I think he's Larry Nance, but more athletic and nimble. And I think that's what his role is going to be, a 4 and a small ball 5 in the NBA. People love that. Tyler Smith, he has very similar measurements to John Collins, but he plays more like his movements closer to PJ Washington. So I think he's really someone that I like to watch and see, move. And I think they're definitely a place for him. I think he's a guy who could really also climb up the boards depending on how the draft falls. Zach Edey, I've said it before, I think he's Boban Marjanovic, but that size and stuff, he's going to be an immediate high-level backup center for a team that needs a backup big. Johnny Murphy's a guy that will either, go around this area or slip up into the lottery, or he could fall to the second depending on how he tests. And he's a scrappy hustle, 6'9", 3-point shooting wing that there's going to be room for those guys in the NBA. Keyshawn George is a guy I like better than Johnny Murphy. He's a 6'8", 3-point shooting, can put the point forward, who wants to play defense. He's kind of an enigma. You've never really seen anything like him. I guess some people would say, like, this is what people thought Cam Reddish was going to be, but, like, Keyshawn George is legit awesome. 3-point shooter, off the catch and shoot, can penetrate, can throw lobs. He's the size of a small forward with the point guard handle, and he loves to play defense. I've said Khalil Ware is the Derek Lively of this draft class. He's going to be a guy that a contending team might fall in love with and take him in the late lottery, where he's a pick and pop big who's a 3-and-D big, but I think he's a guy who, his pick and roll numbers aren't the best, but I think that's a skill that could be developed and he could become a lob threat. And I think after averaging, 16 points and 10 rebounds and 2 blocks, he's 87th percentile on the post. I think some people are saying Christian Wood, Willie Cauley-Stein. I think that's the floor. Kevin McCullough is someone I really, really do love. I love Kevin. He got better over time, and he's a really good defender, and his 3-point shot seemed to work. And for me, I think he's a guy you come in, and he's going to be able to have an impact day one. Bobby Klintman, I don't know what he's supposed to be. Is he a 4-3 or is he a 4-5? He's a guy who has a 7-foot wingspan. He can put the deck around and he can attack. The problem is he's a little stiff. So I saw one person compare him to Bobby Portis. I don't even know what I would compare this guy. Like, you're hoping that I don't even know, guys. I just don't know what he's supposed to be. I love Bub Carrington, Carlton Carrington. He's a guy who kind of reminds me of Karis LeVert. He was really good at the beginning of the year. It wasn't sustainable, and then he went background noise. He's climbing up the boards again. Tyler Kolek's kind of like going to be a guy that if a team needs a day one backup point guard, he's going to be drafted by a team that trades probably back into the first or has a late first-round pick. Jalen Tyson's another guy who can contribute day one. And I think a lot of teams are looking at as somebody that they think could help them out. So he's somebody to definitely keep an eye out if you are looking to see who could be, a sneaky pick. Justin Edwards is like a thicker, more broad version of Trevor Ariza, and I think that's what his role is a 3-and-D big guy. Now, over here, Deron Holmes is like Nick Claxton with the three-point shot, ladies and gentlemen. You'll forget Nick Claxton wasn't a first-round pick. He's good at the pick and roll. Ryan Dunn is Herb Jones with less offense, and he's probably sliding because of that offense. Terrence Shannon's a plug-and-play day-one guy who could be like a Torrey Craig. It's just he has that charge against him. Ulrich Tremonti's 18. Very, very raw, but he's 19 in December, and he's got a 7'4" wingspan. Melvin Ajinça is Alexis Ajinça's nephew, and he's kind of like a mere copy. Dylan Jones over here is kind of a Royce O'Neal type tweener forward who can do a little bit of everything. Ethan Almanza's a poor man's Al Horford. He's the one guy who could probably fly up the boards. Baylor Shireman is a guy who kind of reminds me of the Speed Mikhailou and the Speed Mikhailous of the world. Harrison Ingram, I've literally said, reminds me of Joe Ingles. He could be the Joe Ingles of this draft class. Alex Karaban, I don't think he's an NBA player. I think he's a shorter, less athletic version of Ryan Anderson. Hunter Salas is a guy that I think could fly up boards. He's got some Gary Trent Jr. in him. Oso, he's just a rebounding big. I think someone will prioritize him in the second round. Nothing special. Trey Alexander is, a guy who's showing some penetration ability, passing ability. He's just a sniper. Somebody will prioritize in the second round. I love it, Jay Mitchell. Dude, he's from like the Netherlands, and he just kept getting better and better, and that three-point shot is legit. Juan Yunus is a legit guy playing over in Germany. The Spaniard himself. He's one of the next best passing Spaniards. Pelle Larsson's kind of just a three-point shooting 6'5" Swedish guy from Arizona. KJ Simpson could be one of like the most competent backup point guards who could slip into, the late first, early second. And Adam Bonus just, 6'10", genetic freak. Somebody's going to take a chance on that, like Oscar Schwiebe. Trevin Brazil was like, a 5-star recruit? And he had that ACL injury. He came back. He's just, more of a 5 and a 4. Pacom the Diet is a guy who, he looks like he could either be like a Tony Snell or a Trey Murphy. We don't know yet. Peyton Sanford is another guy that you're hoping he's either like Joe Wieskamp or he's like kind of like a AJ Griffin type. I don't know too much about Jamal Sheed. I noticed a lot of people like him as a guard, but he's 6'1". He's a good on-ball defender. Nothing too crazy. PJ Hall out of Clemson. He's kind of a do-everything, can pass, rebound, block shots. He's fun to watch. Max Christie is Cam Christie's brother. Similar type players. 6'5", 6'6", swingman in that like Courtney Lee mold. Jalen Bridges is a guy people like. He's 23. He's a forward. He's got, a good three-point shot. He could impact day one. Keyshawn Johnson's a 6'7" power forward who loves to play defense and crash the boards. He'll probably be someone who'll have to fight for a Ross Smart. I know a lot of people like Mark Sears, who's an undersized guard who isn't super athletic, but he was good in the tournament. AJ Johnson, dude, he's grown to 6'8", and I've heard he could sneak into the first. He's one of the fastest flying up the boards guys, in my opinion. Tristan Newton's a little older, but, a 6'5" guard who plays defense and passes and a good rebounder. Someone will give him a chance. And then Cam Spencer, a three-point rebounding sniper. That's a guy that people will look for. But that's basically it for me, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy. Like, comment, and subscribe.